You know, Alex, I spent half my life believing that if you wanted to bend a piece of steel, you needed a machine the size of a small sedan and a bank account to match. I remember trying to fold a 16 gauge panel for a tractor guard back in the day using just a curbstone and a sledgehammer. By the time I was finished, it didn't look like a guard. It looked like a crumpled soda can that had been through a car wash.
Please tell me the curb won that fight.
The curb is still there. My dignity, still somewhere in the gutter. But that's the myth, right? That metal is this immovable object unless you've got $10,000 in hydraulics sitting in the corner of the shop.
It is definitely the gatekeeper of the maker world. Most people see a sheet metal brake price tag and decide they're just going to stick to plywood forever. But we've actually been digging into some ways to bypass the heavy iron entirely.
Exactly. You don't need a press brake to get a crisp 90-degree corner. Heck, you don't even need a blowtorch half the time if you're smart about it. Today, we're talking about bending and cutting metal with what you've already got, and maybe a few tricks that feel like cheating, but aren't.
So, let's start with the cheating part, because I actually tried that paper cut trick you mentioned earlier, the one where you use the laser cut relief lines.
Oh, the voodoo method.
It really does feel like voodoo. If you're getting parts laser cut, which honestly for a lot of us is cheaper than buying a whole mill, you can design these little slots right into the bend line. It's like turning steel into a perforated notebook page.
That's a great way to put it. Think about a postage stamp. It wants to tear where the holes are. With metal, we're not tearing, we're pivoting. If you design a series of bridge and slot cuts along your seam, you're basically telling the metal exactly where its midlife crisis is going to happen. It has no choice but to fold right there.
But there's a science to the gap, right? You can't just hack it.
No, you'll end up with a piece of lace that snaps off in your hand. The secret sauce is usually making that gap about half the thickness of the material. If you're working with 1/8-inch steel, you want a slot that's about a 1/16. You leave little tabs of solid metal between the slots. These tabs are the muscle, they hold the piece together, while the slots are the joints.
And the best part is you can bend that stuff by hand on the edge of a bench. No hammer marks, no swearing at a hydraulic pump that won't prime.
But let's say you aren't ordering fancy laser parts. Let's say you're like me on a Tuesday night, standing over a piece of aluminum you just found in the scrap bin, and you need a bracket now.
That's where the 2x4 brake comes in, right? I've seen you do this, and it looks suspiciously like you're just making a sandwich.
It's exactly a sandwich. A very rigid, very unforgiving sandwich. Most people fail at bending because they try to bend the whole piece at once with no support. If you want a straight line, you have to clamp the metal between two perfectly straight, sharp-edged pieces of wood, or even better, angle iron.
I think the mistake I see beginners make, besides trusting my advice, is not clamping it tight enough.
Oh, you've got to crank those clamps until the wood starts groaning. You want that metal paralyzed? If it can wiggle, your bend is going to look like a mountain range instead of a straight line. Once it's locked down, you don't just push it with your thumbs. You take a third piece of wood, press it against the protruding metal, and use that as your lever to distribute the pressure evenly.
It's like a giant hinge made of scrap lumber. I've seen people do this with 10-foot-long sheets of flashing. It's surprisingly elegant for something that costs $3 in pine.
It's honest work, but you have to watch out for springback. Metal is a bit like a stubborn toddler. You push it where you want it to go, and the moment you let go, it tries to retreat a few degrees back to where it was comfortable.
So you have to overbend it?
Just a hair. If you want a 90, you might have to aim for 92 or 93. You'll feel it. There's a moment where the metal yields, where it stops fighting you and accepts its new life as a corner.
What about the really thick stuff? I know we're talking without machines, but at some point muscle isn't enough.
That's when you bring in the poor man's mill, the angle grinder. If I'm trying to bend 1/4-inch plate without a 50-ton press, I'll take a thin cutoff wheel and score a line about 2/3 of the way through the metal.
Wait, isn't that just weakening the part?
Well, yeah, that's the point. You're performing controlled surgery. Once you've got that kerf or groove cut, you can bend it with a pair of pliers. Then, and here's the crucial bit, you take your welder and run a bead right down that groove to fill it back in. You've basically replaced the metal you cut out with fresh weld. It's strong, it's precise, and it doesn't require a gym membership to pull off.
Speaking of grinders, cutting is the other half of this battle. Everyone loves the Spark Show, but I've seen some truly terrifying shapes cut into metal that were supposed to be straight lines.
A grinder is a bucking bronco if you don't respect it. My biggest tuition payment in the shop was thinking I could freehand a long cut in 14-gauge steel just by following a Sharpie line. The wheel caught a burr, the tool jumped, and I ended up with a jagged scar across the workpiece and a very expensive hole in my favorite boots.
At least it was just the boots.
Seriously, the trick for straight cuts isn't a steady hand, it's a guide. Clamp a straight piece of scrap slightly offset from your cut line. Use it as a fence for the guard of your grinder to ride against. It's the same logic as a track saw for wood, just messier and louder.
And what about those of us who don't want the noise? Are we stuck with hacksaws until our arms fall off?
God, I hope not. I've spent enough hours behind a hacksaw to know that's a path to madness. But look, for thin stuff, aluminum especially, you can use a standard circular saw with a non-ferrous metal blade. It sounds like a jet engine eating a bag of quarters, but it cuts like butter.
A jet engine eating a bag of quarters. I'm stealing that.
Just wear a face shield, not safety glasses, a full face shield. Those little metal chips come off that blade like glowing red hornets.
I think the underlying theme here, Tiger, is that expensive is usually just a shortcut for convenient.
That's exactly it. A press brake is a magnificent machine. It saves time. But at the end of the day, metal is just a material with a specific set of rules. It has a grain, it has a breaking point, and it has a memory. If you understand those three things, you can manipulate it with a hammer, a piece of wood, and enough patience.
It's about not being intimidated by the industrialness of it all.
Right, I remember helping a neighbor fix a fender on an old Willys Jeep. We didn't have a roller to get the curve right. We ended up using the trunk of an oak tree in the backyard and a rubber mallet. We just kept massaging it against the bark until the radius matched. It wasn't precise by aerospace standards, but it fit that Jeep perfectly.
There's something poetic about using a tree to fix a truck.
It's the maker's way. Use what's under your feet to solve the problem in your hands.
So, for the folks listening who are staring at a flat sheet of steel and feeling stuck, what's the first move?
Don't overthink the right way. Grab some scrap, clamp it to your bench between two pieces of wood, and just try to move it. Feel how the metal resists, feel how it gives. You'll learn more in 5 minutes of struggling with a piece of angle iron than you will in 5 hours of browsing tool catalogs.
And maybe keep your boots away from the grinder.
Especially the boots. Those are hard to replace.
Thanks for the shop talk, Tiger. I think I'm actually going to go try that jet engine circular saw trick. Wish me luck.
Face shield, Alex. I mean it. If you come back with no eyebrows, I'm telling everyone you did it on purpose.